Okay guys, this is my 2021 K4250. Today we're going to show you some maintenance items that I do on the regular to ensure that I have a nice ride every weekend when I go out there and ride. These items are going to consist of how to adjust the chain, how to clean the chain, and how to lube the chain, as well as how to oil and clean the air filter, along with oil changes as well. This is just your basic routine stuff. There'll be more to come in other videos, but I just wanted to hit on the most basic stuff in the beginning. So let's hop into it. Okay, so I've already tightened and cleaned my chain. I haven't oiled it yet, but for the purpose of this video, we're just gonna go ahead and take all this back loose and retighten it so y'all have something visual to see. For the most part, you want 3 fingers. The book's gonna say a certain number, but I don't see that being necessary. 3 fingers is probably about as much as you need. These are all the tools you're going to need to adjust the chain. You'll need 2 12 millimeters, a 13 millimeter, a 17 millimeter. I like to use a tape measure. You don't have to. I mean, if you have one, it kind of helps a lot. This is just a little oil impact from O'Reilly's and a 19 millimeter socket for the axle nut. Now we're going to start with loosening the axle nut. All it's going to take is a 17 millimeter wrench, the impact, and the 19 millimeter socket. You don't have to use these tools. If you have hand tools, that's perfectly fine as well. I just use these because it's quicker and easier. So we're going to loosen the axle nut here. You ain't got to loosen it all the way. You just got to loosen it just a bit. You ain't got to take it all the way off, nothing like that. Now, since we got that loose, we're going to move to the jam nuts now. So now we're going to loosen the jam nuts right here. It's going to take the 2 12 millimeter wrenches I was telling you about and the 1 13 millimeter. So what you're going to do is you're going to stick your wrenches in here and you're going to loosen your jam nut. You're going to loosen the top one first, just like that. They can be tight depending on how often you've adjusted your chain and such and lubed them up. Now I'm gonna grab my 13 millimeter and I'm gonna hold the head of the bolt so that way I can loosen the bottom jam nut up. It may be already loose. You may be able to push it out with your fingers. If you can, great. Now that we got that loosened up, we're gonna move on to the other side. Okay, now that I have both jam nut sides loose, the chain is loose. I'm able to fit 4 fingers in there. Typically 3 fingers is all you want and all you'll ever need. So, in order to tighten these chains, you're going to take these jam nuts, and this is just something that works for me. Something that works for me may not work for you. I'm just going to use my fingers to kind of put a little bit of tension on here. Not much, just a little bit. Okay, now we're going to move to the other side and do the exact same thing with the jam nuts. Tighten them up, my bad. And we're going to see where we're at when we take these wrenches, and we're going to do exactly the same amount of turns on each side to make sure we get the proper tension. Now with these jam nuts and adjusting rods, you want to do them as close as the same as possible. That's what the tape measure is going to come in for here later. So we're going to take the 13 millimeter and hold this, and we're going to tighten the back jam nut. Just about probably 2, maybe 3 turns in the beginning on this side. And then we're going to go do 2, maybe 3 on the other side. And it's not going to be full turns. It's just going to be the turns that your wrench will allow you to turn. Okay, now we're moving on to the other side. I got that about a turn and a half, 2 turns in. Now we're going to move to the other side and do the exact same thing. Okay. So now that we did it on both sides, the chain has come out pretty tight. I mean, it's perfect right here with 3 fingers in between the chain. So now we're going to start with tightening the adjusting rods. You're going to take your 13 millimeter, hold the head of the bolt, and you're going to spin that in just a little bit, and you're going to take the back jam nut and just tighten it down just a hair. You don't want no slack, no movement in this adjusting rod, nothing like that. That's what you're going to do right there. Then you're going to take the front jam nut and spin it down just to where it touches. You're going to swap to your 12 millimeter wrenches. Again, you're going to hold the rear jam nut, but you're going to tighten the front jam nut down onto the rear. You're going to tighten it enough It ain't got to be real tight, but just enough to hold some tension on there. I put a little bit more than most people probably do. So there we go. We're good there. See, no loose movement, no backing out, nothing. So now we're going to do the other side. Okay, so now that we got everything tightened up, don't tighten it down all the way until you tighten the axle nut back down. And that should be all she needs. Now we got the axle nut tight, we're just going to kind of recheck the chain. 3 fingers, you know, that's perfect. You know, a little bit of wiggle room's okay, not much, but just a little bit. So now we're going to take our 13 and our 2 12s, and we're going to take the 13 and hold the head of this bolt. I've already done it, but I'm just going to give you a step-by-step on the walkthrough on how to do it. You're going to take it, you're going to tighten the bottom jam nut first until it gets pretty good and tight. Then you're going to let down the 13, pick up your other 12, and then you're going to spin the front jam nut in to lock it in place with the rear jam nut. Now, after all that's said and done, I like to take a tape measure, just for my sake, and measure from this block to the beginning of this block. And about 1 3/8 is what I normally generally end up with. And that is about 1 3/8. And we'll walk over to the other side and check it, and we'll be right back. Now that we got everything good and tight with the jam nuts, the chains adjusted, axle nuts back tightened, you've went through and checked everything like you should, we're gonna go with cleaning the chain. Like I said, I've already cleaned my chain, but I mean, it can never be too clean, so we're gonna do it again anyways. And you also kind of want to clean your sprocket, which I have not done that yet, but we'll get into that here soon. So how I like to clean my chain is put it in neutral, put it on my stand, stick my grunge brush on there, which you can get this off of Amazon or any of your motorsports place. I mean, they're about 15, 20 bucks, not really expensive, but I got mine off Amazon. So I'm gonna stick it on there and I'm gonna take the wheel and I'm just gonna kind of slowly roll it, and I'm gonna do this. And just back and forth, like you're brushing your teeth, just back and forth until I feel like I've went all the way around the chain, got it nice and clean. Now there is a cleaner you're supposed to use for these, but I've happened to have ran out, don't have none right now. But just for the time being, this will be fine. Okay, so like I said, once I feel like I've went through the chain, and again, chain's good and tight, I'm gonna take this end of the brush, and I'm just gonna kind of stick it in there, into the links, just to get anything that might be stuck in between the chain and the sprocket out. Just kind of keep going back and forth, and again, until you feel like you've got it, or you don't see as much dirt, or you've got all the dirt out, either or, whichever one comes first. So once we get to that, I'm gonna take this and I'm just gonna clean around the sprocket. You know, it's a dirt bike, it's not gonna be perfectly clean, you know. I'm not trying to make it perfectly clean or anything like that, but cleaner the better though. So once we get that done, we are going to grab some chain lube. I just use some basic stuff from the parts store, just some Lucas chain lube. I've rode my dirt bike just about every weekend since I've owned it for the last several months. And I've used this and have not had any problems other than it slings up into the fender. And that can be kind of a issue to get taken care of and get taken off. But, I mean, you can use products such as chain wax. I know there's a couple other products out there that are pretty good. Just about everything you can order off of Amazon or get from a motorsports place. So how I like to start lubing my chain is I start up here at the chain guard, right here at the chain guard, and I just roll the wheel and I spray. And I spray a liberal amount. I do not stop until I feel like it is good and coated. Just like that. You see it dripping on the floor. You can even spray some on the sprocket if you want to. And that's what I find best on cleaning, lubing, and adjusting the chain. Just one other thing I want to hit on real quick, the fuel petcock. I've seen a lot of questions about this on the page and such. If you look at your fuel petcock, you'll notice there's an arrow on the turn handle. There's an arrow that points to wherever you have it at. So this upper part, if you notice, it looks like a glass half full. That's going to be your reserve. If you turn it like that, your fuel is off. If it's straight down, and I'm just going to turn this so you can see it, that is a glass that looks like it's full. So that is going to be your full tank. You just turn it straight down like that. And again, I said there's an arrow right here on the edge of the petcock. I mean, it's hard to see. You may not be able to see it real well. But that is pointing down. That means your fuel is turned on. So now what we're going to get into is cleaning the air filter. My air filter, I clean it after every ride, whether I ride for an hour, I ride for 4 hours, heck, ride for 10 hours. I change it. Same thing goes with everything that I'm showing you right here. Whether I ride for an hour or 10 hours, I'm going to do this maintenance as soon as I get home. Now, my air filter is already cleaned. I use this product right here. Air filter oil and some Maxima air filter cleaner. All you're going to want to do with these products right here is you're going to soak your filter first. Make sure you get any external mud or debris off the filter before you go in with the cleaning agent. After that, you're going to spray a fair amount on this. Don't use the whole can. You'll get a couple uses out of this, but spray it all over. Gloves are best to be handled with this. So then you're going to take it and you're going to knead it. You're just going to grab it and you're going to just throw it all in there. I do mine in a bucket so that way I can dunk the filter in it back and forth so that way the cleaner solution gets out of the filter. And I do not oil it until right before I go and ride. So the oil is fresh, it is sticky, it is clean, everything's ready to go. And I do not put the filter back into the bike until I know the filter has dried from all the water that I have put on it. So after that, what you're gonna do, and this is just for demonstration purposes, this is your air box cover or your number plate, whatever you'd like to call it. There's gonna be a tab here, and I'm pretty sure there's a tab somewhere along this line, but we'll see when we get there. So you're just gonna take that and pop it off. It's gonna be kind of hard, don't worry. I mean, you ain't gonna break it. I haven't broke one yet and I'm not gentle. You're gonna take it like that, and it's gonna pop off. So yes, there is a tab. There's 3 tabs in total. One here, here, and here. All you're gonna do is you're gonna take your air filter. The long nipple is gonna go at the top. The short nipple is gonna go down at the bottom. You're gonna take this and you're gonna line it up. There's a hole right here for it. You're gonna line it up and you're just gonna kind of push it in, and then there's a strap right here. Take this strap, fold it up. It can be a little hard sometimes, just depending on your angle and where you're standing at or how cold it is outside. And you're gonna strap that in just like that. I like to take my air filter and kind of fluff it into the air box so that way I know I get complete and total coverage and I'm not gonna suck in any debris, dirt, sand particles down into a cylinder. You do not want that. So we're gonna leave that right there like it is. I'm gonna put the cover back on it. And again, you ain't gotta be gentle. It's not a baby, you're not gonna break it. You gotta give your bike a little bit more credit for durability than that. And you're just gonna pop it in. Make sure it's good and popped in. You can grab it a little few times, see if it's gonna cut loose. And that is how you clean and oil your air filter and install it after you've cleaned and oiled it. Again, make sure your filter is dry before you go on your next ride. You don't want to be sucking water down in it from the filter that you just cleaned or something of that nature. That will seriously damage the motor. So now, since we've went through the chain adjustant, the fuel petcock, and the air filter, we're going to start with oil change here. Now, I know most of you probably already know how to get a bike off a stand. These bikes are abnormally heavy compared to most other bikes. I'm sure you all know that already. So, but I just like to grab the kickstand, grab it, and throw it off. Just like that. Quick, simple, fast movement. If you lollygag around and you hold it, you're gonna tire out and it's gonna be much harder to put it on and off. So now that we got the bike off the stand, I'm gonna gather the stuff for the oil change and we'll be right back with you. Okay, now for the oil change. Just for everybody's sake and people who don't know this, this right here is your oil dipstick and this right here is your sight glass. I've noticed that some of the other Kayo bikes don't come with a sight glass, like the T2 230. They do not come with one, they only come with a dipstick. Now what I like to do first is take the dipstick out of the bike and just lay it down on a paper towel. Don't get no dust on it, don't break it, they're very fragile. Then you're gonna need a ratchet wrench with a 17 millimeter. You're gonna need your preferred oil. I prefer Yamalube, 1040, wet clutch safe, all that. Can't go wrong with it. Name brand item, been around for a long time. But you can use just about any oil that is wet clutch safe, that is 10W40. And then you're gonna need a funnel to fill your oil back up when you're done. So I'm just gonna stick the funnel in here for right now. Now, there is a few plugs up under here, but this is gonna be the one that you're going to loosen right here that I have my finger on. So I'm gonna loosen that and break it loose and we'll be right back. Okay, now that you got your oil draining, I like to stand the bike up a little bit just to ensure that I get any old oil out. You're not gonna ever get all of it, but it's just safe to ensure that you get most of it at least. So just keep it standing up until it gets to a very slight small stream and then plug her back up with your oil drain. Okay, now that you got a slight stream that's coming out, it's not very much coming out no more, just go ahead and plug your drain plug back up. It can be kind of hard to find this from time to time, just depending on, you know, where you're at and if you're sitting in a different position or such. You'll do that, you'll take your socket and your wrench, you'll stick it back on there, and it don't have to be real tight. Maybe 15 pounds, and that's it. It don't have to be real tight. It's not gonna pour oil out of it anywhere or anything of that nature. So now, once you get that, you have two ways of checking if you've put enough oil in your bike. You can use the dipstick, you can use the sight glass. I prefer the sight glass, but people that don't have the sight glass, like I previously stated with the T2 230, that doesn't have the sight glass, you'll have to use the dipstick. So, I'm not real sure on the exact amount that this holds, but I just pour it in there until it gets in between the low and the high marks of the sight glass. Now remember, the bike has to be standing up straight, cannot be on this kickstand for the sight glass to read properly. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill it up and we'll show you what that looks like when we get done. Now that we got oil put in the bike, you can see that is in between the low and the high symbol on the sight glass. It is right in between. I mean, it could be right on the high mark. I'd say that'd be okay. I've done that before, haven't had any issues. But you just don't want it to be much higher than that. So the other way you can check the oil level on these bikes, on the K4 250, I know at least, you do have the dipstick and the sight glass. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna pick the bike up and stand it up, and I'm gonna screw this in. And then I'm gonna pull it back out right after I screw it in. And you can see on the dipstick that the oil is full. In them hash marks, you don't want it to be above it and you don't want it to be real low below it, but right in between them hash marks is the perfect line. I'm gonna stick that back in as we're done with the oil change. Again, be careful with this dipstick. They are flimsy, they are breakable, they are not made out of a very good product. And I think that right there is going to conclude our video. Now these are just some of the most basic maintenance items that I do, like I've said, whether I've rode an hour that weekend or I rode 10. Make sure that my bike is ready to go, it's running right, nothing's wrong. There's the other videos I'll be coming out with will be pertaining to other things such as tuning the carburetor, cleaning the fork seals, other stuff of that nature. This is just like a tips for the beginners, people who have just purchased their first dirt bike. Hopefully this helps you out a lot, guys. It's helped me out a lot. There's not many videos on these bikes. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. I'm in the page, Jonathan Brady. I'm pretty active on it. I'll be able to try to help you with all the questions and give you the answers that you need. Thank you for watching the video today, and I hope you have a good weekend riding.